Hey there everybody, welcome back to Fantasy Inc. My name is Wyeth, and today we are reviewing Rhaenyra Revelations, Book 1, technically Theft of Swords. In this video, we're going to be going over the summary of the first book, the deep dive with the spoilers, as well as some interesting facts y'all might not have already been aware of. Let's do this. Michael J. Sullivan is the author of this very intriguing series, and he initially started it to be self-published. Originally, there was 6 books in the series. The first 2 are The Crown Conspiracy and Avanpartha, and because of all the success the series had gained, Orbit, the publisher, decided to pick it up. And they did a little rebranding. They decided to combine books 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, to make them a little more substantial, which led to Book 1, The Theft of Swords. Given this knowledge, actually, I have to say the title that they went with, Theft of Swords, is right on the money for both Book 1 and Book 2, and I'm just ecstatic to review both of them at the same time. Given that information, let's go ahead and jump into the summary. Our main characters are Royce and Hadrian, 2 thieves that have grown to have a bit of a reputation known as Rhaenyra. They do not work for any guilds, and that can be a point of contention at some point in the series if the author decided to write it that way. And after a very satisfying job at the beginning of the book, they become embroiled in much more political intrigue and conspiracy. The task that they are sent on is to retrieve a sword of one of the highest nobles in the land, and they are given very short notice. As you can imagine, the job goes awry and they are thrown into the middle of a lot of chaos. And these 2 thieves have to work together with their unfortunate allies to make sure that they can get out with not only their lives, but to make sure the entire kingdom doesn't burn down as well. One very interesting fact that I read about, and if it's true, I hope so, I don't want to spread fake news, is that Michael J. Sullivan, the author, had actually written all of these books before he even self-published any of them. This really allowed him to take the time, cut out the fluff, and make sure there was no plot holes in the stories, at least for the first 2 that I have read. With that, I'm going to go ahead and jump over to some pro-con pros. The first pro is I am truly amazed at the history and world building that Michael J. Sullivan created with this series. It is spectacular to see how he built out this world in his mind and how it comes across in the pages or through your headphones. What I mean by that is the gods are very fleshed out. The history of the kingdoms are there, and it all ties into the plots that Hadrian and Royce are seeing through. This detailed history that Mr. Sullivan has created definitely does give foreshadowing, I imagine, for the rest of the series, but plays a big part in the present pages that you are in. That's a lot of alliteration. Going over to a con when I had finished Theft of Swords was that Hadrian and Royce's characters were not very fleshed out. We weren't given a lot of background on them, and yes, we have this great dynamic and friendship between the 2 of them, but when the perspective of the reader is looking through their eyes, they're very closed off compared to the other characters that we get to see. What I mean to say by that, it's very obvious what the past of some of these characters are, but for Hadrian and Royce, our protagonists, it's very shrouded, and it really bugged me the wrong way. And then once I was downloading the second book in the series, or Book 3, I realized that the series is called Rhaenyra Revelations. We are slowly being introduced to these 2 characters, and it finally clicked for me. That's what the purpose of this series is for. I'm not supposed to know the pasts of these 2 until much later on in the series, and ideally the payoff is going to be there once we get there. So, kind of a con, but not really. My final pro is there's very little fluff in the Theft of Swords. Every single scene that we are reading or listening to is integral to the story, at least for the Crown Conspiracy. Avanpartha, I could make an argument for a scene here and a scene there, but in the grand scheme of things, this book is extremely well fleshed out. Michael J. Sullivan definitely had a plan for these two characters out in his mind, and because he was able to hold back publishing and write the entire series before he published, he was able to make sure that plan came to fruition. With all that said, if you haven't checked out this series, please do. I've really enjoyed it so far, and I look forward to finishing it myself. Now we're going to jump over to the deep dive, talking about the spoilers, what I thought of the series, and I hope that y'all come back and check this video out so we can have a discussion about it in the comments below. Be sure to keep reading. The Crown Conspiracy book and the Theft of Swords has to be pretty dang close to perfect. I don't think I'm overestimating there. For those of you who have probably not read it in a while, Hadrian and Royce are tasked by the Princess Arista to kidnap Alric, the new king, to save his life, and they go on a little bit of an adventure, not too long, which I can appreciate. On this adventure, they stop by the burned down abbey and pick up Mavin, the monk, and go off to visit Ezra, the formidable wizard who happens to be about 900 years old. After quick dialogue between them, they return to not only save Arista the princess, but to take out the brother of the old king, Percy Braga, or the uncle of the two nobles, and put back Alric on his rightful throne. I have to say, I really enjoyed the character development for Alric. It wasn't rushed because the book itself is fairly short. He goes from this very pompous young man to still a bit pompous, but more in touch with reality. To be quite candid, my favorite character was Mavin the monk. Getting to see the world through Mavin's eyes was very interesting because he had never left the abbey and everything was new to him. And we as readers can carry some similarities between that because we haven't ever seen the world that Michael J. Sullivan had created on these pages. When it comes to Arista, I'm not really sold on her yet. We'll have to see where she's taken in the series, but she seems a little too high and mighty for my opinion, and thinks she has the world figured out, but it's very evident that she's just kind of guessing as she goes. When it comes to Avanpartha, the second half of the Theft of Swords, Royce and Hadrian are taking pity on a young gal named Thress or Threll or something along those lines. I've got it right here, I'm sure. And they are going to retrieve another sword to defeat a beast and save her father, who is basically trying to kill himself. With that, they meet Ezra in the small village, and they learn that this beast is a conjuration of the old elven forest that had ruled those lands prior to this village being there. They break into Avanpartha, which is the main tower, and along the way, people are kidnapped. The father of the young girl comes around to be a good guy and gets a good death by the end of the book, and they are able to defeat this monstrosity while learning a little bit more about Hadrian in this instance. With all that said, not my favorite book. It was a little slow at parts, though every scene is integral, I'm sure, to the series as a whole. I don't know, I wasn't really captured by the plot of defeating the beast. I imagine that this book was a bit of a stepping stone to set up events for future books in the series. I'm not sure though, but that would just be my guess. All in all, we did get a little more information on Royce, who is half elvish, half human, and we can assume that Hadrian is a descendant of one of the guardsmen of the old king or god, Nephron. One thing I saw in both books contained in the Theft of Swords is the damsel in distress trope. Arista, the princess, is definitely used as a tool to move the story further. She was not only captured in the Crown Conspiracy and locked in her tower by her uncle, Percy Braga, but was also captured by the beast and taken to atop another tower. It's okay, to be quite candid, though what I think would really make that a good choice is seeing her character develop further in the future books to have her become more self-sufficient and be able to get out of scenarios on her own and not rely on Royce and Hadrian. When it comes to a comparison between the two books, The Crown Conspiracy is leaps and bounds better than Avanpartha, but if this book is used to set up future books, which I imagine it will be given the talks between the Bishop Saldar and Guy, the church enforcer, they have designs to make this new young girl who slayed the beast the new empress, and they are planning on basically using her. So I imagine it's not going to be a good scene for her character in the next few books, but I'll just have to keep reading. With all that said, Michael J. Sullivan really did create a very intriguing world, and I'm very much looking forward to the rest of this series. If y'all have read it, please feel free to jump in the comments, tell me your thoughts and what I should look forward to without too many spoilers, and I hope that y'all are doing what I'm doing right now and recommending this one to as many people as possible. With that, I appreciate everyone's time, and I hope that y'all have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Be sure to keep reading.